And I just want to talk again about ancestors and the immense growth that you can have by just connecting with them. Especially in a time period where getting ancestry tests is so huge right now, genetic tests, ancestry tests. And I want to just share that not only with what your family members have told you and passed down. There's a reason that that occurs. There's a reason that they pass down things to you and that they share with you your lineage or your heritage, especially our grandparents alive right now. And they are supposed to be honored in our society. Our elders are supposed to be honored in our society. And it makes me really sad that they are promised these golden years, but then they're isolated and alone with very little money to help support them. So I don't see that as golden years. I see that as awful. But again, our ancestors are supposed to be honored, and then they're capable of passing along the lineages to us. Now, unfortunately, in this country, a lot of people that came here were escaping something from their own country. That's why they came here, to be free, because that was the promise. And then, of course, we now know the truth about what occurred, and we know that it was not some peaceful dinner time at Thanksgiving, but instead this was a horrific thing that happened in this country. But now that the truth is being revealed and told, hopefully we can come together and we can share the truth and come together for real this time, so that in future generations we can say, you know, people in our past and our ancestors all messed up because we didn't do the right things all the time. But we realized that because the truth was revealed to us. And then from there, we decided to build foundations of trust because we told the truth, on which we could finally grow peace, which is what our future generations will hopefully be able to experience through this time period of us paving the way for what is right instead of who is right. So for me, the ancestry tests are also part of the whitewashing system that we've been conditioned to sort of accept, especially if you came from any sort of heritage and then you were alive in this country, or your ancestors were in a time where they were trying to remove the Indian from the man, or the African from the man, or whoever, you know, the Middle Easterner from the man. Whatever was going on, there was this need to sort of fit in so that you could be under the radar and survive. Now that has taken away culture, languages, lineages, traditions. And so for me, one of the best things that I've ever done is always, I've always just spoken to them. When I've looked up and I've seen the stars above me, I'm thinking those are my ancestors and those are my family. Those are my star family. So I've always sort of been conditioned to speak about them and to speak to them. And even if I was alone in this earth, I've always been inclined to be connected to them and to really listen to their guidance and feel them around me. And when people pass in this life, I don't ever feel like they're gone. I always feel like I can see them and feel them still, just because that's how I am and how I've always been in this world. Something that I will say has been really beneficial is when you intentionally make the, when you intentionally connect with your ancestors. So again, I've spoken about it. I've done a free class on it on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Facebook before, but I didn't record it. And it was all about my experiences and my journeys, finding my ancestors, connecting with my ancestors, and then listening to them when they started speaking to me via meditation, or the foods that I was cooking, or the dances that I was doing, or the spiritual traditions that I was using, even though I wasn't aware of what they were. So just following my inspiration through my ancestors has been huge. And because everything is sort of whitewashed, because if they can disconnect you from your heritage and from your ancestry, then they disconnect you from the power that you hold within, because there is real power in our blood. We are sacred divine beings, and there is real power in our blood. And it is very important for us to know that, right? And for us to stand together, and for us to remember, and for us to connect, and for us to ask questions. And if we cannot be with our ancestors, if we are removed from them for whatever reason, then connect within your heart and your soul, because they are still there. They're in your DNA. They are in your spinal cord. They are in your spine memory. They say that if we heal now, we have an effect on 7 generations past and 7 generations forward. So this is a very major thing that we can do together. We can literally work with ourselves, heal with our ancestors, and work with them and reconnect with them. And the benefit benefits that you get are far greater than what you could do through a DNA test. And it's just kind of interesting. That, I think, is beautiful, and it's a great idea, but it also doesn't discount the connection that you have and hold. I've heard of many indigenous peoples who have been tracked lineage-wise on their reservation, but they take an ancestry test and they have no Native American blood. You know, that's kind of like something that's worth looking at and thinking about. So there's something to just remembering and communicating with your ancestors. Again, make the intention. I started drawing them in 2015, but again, I've always been really connected to them via the sky and my surroundings. And when I'm in nature, I've always been able to connect and see these beautiful places. When I close my eyes and touch trees, you know, I have this beautiful life. And I've always shown people that are around me, children that I'm interacting with or that I'm helping raise, or other people occasionally, like I've shared with some grown-ups that as well. And it's really about connection. You know, you can touch a rock and close your eyes and see these beautiful places and spaces. You can close your eyes and you can touch a tree and connect with them. You can connect to spaces and places beyond yourself. And it's a really beautiful thing because it gives you a foundation and a strength that you might not have in this world with human beings that are here at this time. So it's really important that those of us that feel under supported remember that we're not alone and that we really do have our ancestors standing behind us and with us. And I find great power in that. And they're connecting to me through all of the elements and every single day. And it is very important to do what you need to connect to them. For me, placing a picture of my great-grandmother and great-grandfather on December 8th of 2018, I'm sorry. Actually, it could have been December 12th of 2018. I placed it up in my kitchen on my ancestor altar. And from there, I really connected to them spiritually in a lot of ways. And I started to connect with them in meditations, connect with them with what I was cooking for foods, what I was listening to for music, how I was dancing and moving my body, how I was connecting to spirit, how my spiritual practice was guided and governed. Some people thought I was doing voodoo or hoodoo, but I've never taken a course or a class on that. I was just expressing my ancestors were coming through me because they are indigenous peoples from many lands. And again, America is a melting pot. So we're all very, very, very mixed. It is very rare that you come across somebody who isn't. Because at this time, again, love has never known any type of boundary. So true love doesn't have a race or a culture or a religion. And that's why it's really important for us to remember that our ancestors, no matter how much you think you know and understand, you know, many people fall in love and many people have children and bring them into this world. And most of us are mixed. Most of us. I think it's probably really rare that somebody is not. And if they are not, then we can honor them and we can hold their traditions and listen to them. Watching in the rainforest in South America and watching what these indigenous peoples are fighting through is really, really horrific and shouldn't be an occurrence, because we should really be honoring them and listening to them and saying, okay, if people want to come here, what can they do to help it? You know, there's solutions to these things. Like, we need to keep their land sacred for them, but there's a whole lot of land that's been cut down and burned down that can be regrown for people that want to come. And there needs to be a reconnection to the ecosystem and to society, and going to those indigenous lands and going to those indigenous tribes and saying, what did you do? How did you live? How did your ancestors live? What are the answers that we have to these problems that we're currently facing? And how can we all remember to work together? Because again, unless you are 100% Native American indigenous, then you are all visitors here. That's something to remember. And even then, you know, our ancestors, much of them were nomads and moved around. So there is that as well. You know, there's peoples that moved across continents and were indigenous peoples and followed the flow of fish or the air or the weather, or their gut, their heart, you know, their sky mother and father, their earth mother and father, the connection. So we really need to think about those things. But again, I cannot stress the importance of reconnecting with your ancestors, even if it looks like putting a photograph up. Even if it looks like sitting in meditation and maybe you think of 150 things that have nothing to do with spirituality or ancestors, but you have one glimpse of something, then write that down and follow that thread, because it's a piece that's put in place there for you to remember. Because if you can remember, then you can remember how powerful we are as human beings. And you can also remember that we're beautiful because we are all different, though we are one.